Sports lessons for business. Welcome to Huddle for Success. I'm Duane Gibbs alongside my partner, Mark Bruce, the Hall of Famer, and we come to you each and every Monday with a new episode, not only for your personal life, but also business for well, helping you gain true clarity. With that being said, let's huddle up. Good morning.
Man, I love this topic. We're going to have another fun Monday. I like it.
Yes.
I like it.
Yeah, so let me ask you a question. Let's talk about something that bridges two worlds, sports and business.
Yep.
And honestly, I think business owners miss the lesson that sometimes they don't incorporate the two. Maybe you're a sports person or not. We are. We relate a lot of things to sports. And Mark, you have played at a high level. So my question for you is, playing at a high level, how did that help you in business, and how were you able to take the transition of what you've learned and implement it into your successful businesses?
Well, I tell you the number one thing that I learned in sports that helped me in business was teamwork. That teams always win. If you've got a good team pulling together, you can beat a superstar. When I was at DeMatha, we played James Worthy's high school team my senior year, and without a doubt, James Worthy was the best player on the court, hands down, by far. And yet, our team held him to his lowest scoring venture of the season, and we beat the team fairly handily. So, teams always win. And in sports, you've got specialists, you've got quarterbacks. A quarterback is not going to try and block somebody. I mean, we've probably all seen a quarterback try and block somebody and they miss them. They'd never be an offensive lineman.
Hmm.
Everybody's got expertise, and if you can get all of the expertise is pulling together, moving in the same direction, oh my gosh, you've got a great team.
No question.
Yeah. So um, we know teamwork matters,
Hmm.
but here's the thing I see in business that I never saw on the field. People don't practice. Business
No.
owners don't practice. They just play the game. How does that show up in what we teach?
Well, first of all, obviously, you got to practice in sports. You got to practice. If you want to be the best individually and as a team, you got to practice. That's why we're so big on having mastermind and having group coaching. Because let me tell you, it brings out the best in everybody. Number one, I believe that collaboration is like practice for business owners. And we see it all the time in our business when we collaborate, and when we collaborate with others, we get the best out of it, and it helps us evolve in our business.
Yeah.
And so that's, no different than sports teams or
Yeah.
individual athletes, no different than what they do there.
I know.
Also,
I hate to interrupt, but I know one of the favorite things that you did with your salespeople is you role played. You did
all the time,
practice.
all the time.
Yeah.
They didn't like it, but listen, my feeling was, if you're able to overcome my objectives and have me see things in a different way, it's going to be a lot easier for you to be able to do that to your clients, to your customers, simply because they don't know the answers like you do. When you role play in business and helping your salespeople, we have all the answers. We know what that's going to be and what the outtake's going to be. And so I loved it. I loved it. And over time, everybody started to like it better because they felt better. They produced more. They were more productive. They felt like they were giving more back. And not only that, at the end of the day, their paychecks started getting better because they were getting better. No different than a sports team. The more they practice, the more they get in line, the more they win championships. And I think that's huge. Um,
Yeah.
we talked about we talked about at some point why don't why don't companies assess more of their employees? And I think a coach does that with a team. They assess who's batting better, who has a better batting average, who hits better to right-handers than they do left-handers, and vice versa. In football, are we going to do a run play, or are we going to do a pass play because the defense is lining up in a different formation? What works better? Well, practicing and implementing the practices creates better yardage, creates better wins, creates more home runs, creates more goals. And so very important. And I think people need to bridge the two because it's very important.
Yep.
That's
I
that's my personal feeling.
Hey, I used to hate to run wind sprints in practice, but it made us better. You've got to
Yes,
you
absolutely.
you got to practice.
So here's something I think about a lot in sports. You've got a scoreboard. Everyone knows you're winning or losing. In business, a lot of owners don't even know the score of the game. What do you think that is?
Well, I know for me early on, the scoreboard in business is your profit and loss statement and your balance sheet, accounting documents. And for the life of me, I could not figure out how a debit could be a positive number and a negative number at the same time. Accounting just did not make sense to me. I have an economics degree. I understand supply and demand. Accounting, sometimes I just couldn't quite figure that out. So I didn't want to figure it out. It was hard. I've got a friend with a $17 million a year business, and he never looks at his balance sheet or his profit and loss. He knows whether he's got cash in the bank, and that's his scorecard, which is truly not necessarily the best way to run a business. So
Wow, 17 years not knowing what you're making.
yeah, well, he's been in business for 30 years, but and he's got a $17 million company. It's not a small company, and he doesn't. I asked him what his profits were one day, and he's like, well, "Oh, I don't know." It's like, you don't know?
I don't recommend that. I'm just going to go
No,
on the record and say
no.
that's not something that we
Oh my
teach. I don't recommend that.
Yeah, definitely not. So anyway, you've got to know your numbers. And the reason people don't do it, sometimes you've got to learn a new language, an accounting language, and it's hard to do that sometimes.
Yeah.
So let's talk about the mental side of things. In sports, psychology is half the game.
Hmm.
How does that translate to business?
I think everything, the difference between a business that scales and a business that stays stuck, it's almost always it's the owner's paradigm.
Yep.
It's their programming. It's like sports. It's just like sports. Um, the belief determines their performance. We teach the 5 A's because that's the mental game for a business. We talk about assessment, we talk about awareness, we talk about alignment, we talk about action, we talk about accountability. The players need to know where they are. Understanding their limits, their beliefs gets them aligned
Yeah. Without a
with
doubt.
yeah. And so if you're not doing that as a business, and I you and I talk about this all the time, especially a new business owner coming into it, you have to have an assessment of why. You have to have awareness of who your competition is and what struggles you're going to have. You have to make sure everything is in line before you open the doors. You need to take action on everything that you built, and you need to hold throughout that whole process yourself self accountable. And I think that if you work, I strongly believe in our 5 A's because I think it believes not only in sports but also in business, also family, also so many other things that we do on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah, I mean, it reminds me of two stories. I'll try and keep them quick. Uh, my two of my high school teammates, Derek Whittenberg and Sidney Lowe went to NC State. They played for Jimmy Valvano. The first day of practice, he got a ladder out. He got a ladder out and a pair of scissors, and the practice was cutting down the nets.
Wow.
And in that year, they beat probably one of the best college teams ever in the University of Houston in an unbelievable upset and won a national championship. That's sports. In business, I used to have this story hang on my wall. It was called The Hot Dog Stand. And it was a story about how this man, he opened a hot dog stand and he served up hot dogs and he sold out every day. So he bought more hot dogs, he bought more rolls, and he sold out. So he bought more and he sold more. And he was able to send his son to college, and he went around and he learned business. He got a business degree, and he came back and he said, "Dad, don't you know the economy's bad. You better cut back." So his dad said, "Well, he has a college education. I better listen to him." And he cut back the number of hot dogs he ordered, so he sold a little bit less. And his son said, "The economy's still bad. You better cut back." So he bought less hot dogs, and he sold less hot dogs, and he bought less Next thing you know, Dad's out of business. All mindset. Dad didn't care whether the economy was bad at first until he had someone that he thought was an expert tell him that it was bad.
Yeah.
Mindset is everything.
Yes. So my last question for you is, in the NFL, there's something, as we know, called the draft.
Yes.
They have a draft in the NBA. So NFL audit, for those of you that play other sports, yes, there is other drafts. We're using NFL right now for this conversation. Teams have to make changes strategically, and decisions have to be made of what player is going to work best for their roster, what system they're using. How is that like building a team business?
Wow. Well, when you're hiring for your team, you've got to hire for the culture and the attitude, not just the skills. You've got to find a player that fits in. You could bring in a superstar, and I saw this in my tanning salon and other people's tanning salons, how they would bring in a great salesperson and they would sell lots of stuff, but the rest of the staff, they said, "Oh, I got this," and they'd cut in line and they wouldn't share the commission, and it didn't fit the culture. And even though they might have been a great player, they were not a great teammate, and it can cause problems. Great book if anybody wants to read it. It's called Top Grading. We implemented that in our tanning salons. It's a way to grade your staff, and it talks about how to grade them and how to interview. Unbelievable book called Top Grading. I'll throw that out as a freebie.
I love it. I love it.
Yeah.
Hey, we appreciate you, the listener, tuning in each and every Monday for a new episode and a new topic. We also sometimes have special guests, so look for that. Also, if you're not familiar, we do a Huddle Up session every Wednesday and Friday. That's 3 to 5 minutes with a quick mindful thought. So with that being said, like, share, leave a comment. If you feel like this could be beneficial to someone, share this. We'd love to hear your comment and theirs. With that being said, stay huddled up, and we'll see you on the next episode of Huddle for Success.
Thank you for tuning in to this week's episode of Huddle for Success. If you found it helpful and want to support others on their journey, share this podcast, leave us a rating, and drop your thoughts in the comments. We'll see you next week on Huddle for Success. Stay huddled up.